The rain had been falling since morning, tapping against the windows of the quiet house like it was trying to remind someone inside that time was still moving. Laura Bennett stood near the couch, pressing her palm against her lower back. The pain had started weeks ago. A dull ache that came from long nights without sleep and days filled with thoughts she could not escape. Since her husband Mark's death, even simple things felt heavier. Silence followed her everywhere. Ethan, her stepson, watched her from the doorway. He had moved back into the house after college, not because he had to, but because he did not want her to be alone. He carried his own grief, though he rarely spoke about it. Mark had been his anchor too. Now, both of them were learning how to live in a house that felt unfamiliar without him. "You look uncomfortable," Ethan said, breaking the silence. His voice was calm, careful. "Your shoulders look tight." Laura tried to smile it away. "It's nothing. Just one of those days." Ethan stepped closer, keeping a respectful distance. "I took a physical therapy elective in college," he said. "Nothing serious, but I learned a few things. I could help your back if you want. Just shoulders." "Completely fine if you say no," Laura hesitated. The offer was kind, but it caught her off guard. For a moment she almost said no out of habit. Then the ache pulsed again, and she nodded. "All right," she said softly. "Just for a minute." They moved to opposite ends of the couch. Laura sat straight, her hands folded in her lap. Ethan stood behind her, unsure where to place his hands. He took a slow breath, as if reminding himself to stay grounded, when his hands finally touched her shoulders. They were firm but controlled. His posture was stiff, his muscles tense. He felt solid, unmoving, almost like stone. Laura noticed it immediately, not in a strange way, but in a human way. He wasn't relaxed. He wasn't casual. He was holding himself together with effort. The room felt smaller. Not because of the touch, but because of everything around it. The memory of Mark, the quiet house, the shared loss that sat between them like an unspoken guest. Ethan focused on the movement of his hands, careful not to linger. His thoughts raced. He reminded himself why he was there. To help, to support, to be family, nothing more. Laura closed her eyes. The pressure eased the ache in her shoulders. But it stirred something else, to sadness, longing, and a sharp reminder of how alone she had felt. She had not realized how much she missed simple care until that moment. Ethan's hands paused for a second. He noticed his own tension, how rigid he felt, how guarded. He worried she might misunderstand. He worried he might misunderstand himself. "Is this okay?" he asked quickly. "Yes," Laura replied. "Thank you. You're helping." Her words were gentle, grateful. Still, Ethan stepped back sooner than necessary, letting his hands fall to his sides. The moment ended abruptly, like a door closing before anyone stepped through it. Laura turned her head slightly, surprised. She saw his expression uneasy, conflicted, but respectful. "I'm sorry," he said. "I just don't want things to feel strange." Laura understood then that what she had felt was not danger or desire, but the weight of emotions neither of them had processed. Grief had a way of confusing comfort with closeness. "It's all right," she said calmly. "You didn't do anything wrong?" Ethan nodded, relief passing across his face, though tension still clung to him. He excused himself and went to his room, leaving Laura alone in the living room once more. She sat there, listening to the rain, thinking about how quickly a simple moment could carry so much meaning. Nothing inappropriate had happened, yet it had shaken her. Not because of Ethan, but because of what she was missing. The house remained quiet. But now the silence felt different, and Laura sensed that this was only the beginning of a deeper emotional shift neither of them was ready to face yet. The house felt different after that evening. Not tense, but alert, like both Laura and Ethan were suddenly aware of every sound, every pause, every look. Morning light filled the kitchen, and the smell of coffee drifted through the air. Ethan sat at the table scrolling through his phone, but his mind was far away. Laura moved quietly, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. She placed one in front of him without speaking. Their hands did not touch, yet both noticed the space between them. "Sleep okay?" she asked. "Yeah," Ethan replied. It was a lie, but an easy one. He had barely slept, replaying the moment in his head. He wasn't ashamed, but he was confused. He cared about Laura deeply, in a way that mixed respect, loyalty, and responsibility. That mix made everything feel heavy. They ate breakfast in silence. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets wet and shining. Ethan finally stood up. "I'm going to run some errands," he said. "I'll be back later." Laura nodded. "Drive safe." When the door closed behind him, Laura leaned against the counter. The quiet returned, but it no longer felt empty. Her thoughts were loud. She kept asking herself why that small moment had stayed with her. Nothing crossed a line. Nothing inappropriate happened. Yet her heart had reacted before her mind could catch up. She missed being seen. Missed being cared for. Missed feeling human connection without having to ask for it. That realization scared her. Later that afternoon, Laura sat on the porch with a blanket over her shoulders, reading but not turning pages. Ethan's car pulled into the driveway. He stepped out, holding a grocery bag and a serious expression. "Hey," he said. "Hey," she replied. He sat on the steps, not too close, not too far. The distance was careful. "I've been thinking," he said, "about yesterday." Laura listened without interrupting. "I just want to be clear," he continued. "I respect you. You're my family. And I don't ever want you to feel uncomfortable or confused about my intentions." His words were honest, steady. Laura felt a wave of relief mixed with sadness. "I appreciate that," she said. "And I want you to know, I don't expect anything from you. I think we're both just caring more than we admit." Ethan nodded. "Yeah, grief doesn't ask permission. It just shows up." They sat quietly for a moment, listening to birds and distant traffic. The world went on even when emotions felt stuck. That evening, Laura cooked dinner. Ethan helped, chopping vegetables and setting the table. They talked about normal things: work, shows, plans for the weekend. The conversation felt easier, lighter, like a careful reset. But later that night, Laura lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her back no longer hurt, but her chest felt tight. She thought about how Ethan had grown into a strong, thoughtful man. Not as something romantic, but as a reminder that time had passed, that life had changed, and that Mark was truly gone. Down the hall, Ethan sat at his desk, writing in a notebook he hadn't opened in years. He wrote about guilt, about loyalty, about how caring for someone could be misunderstood even by himself. He reminded himself of boundaries, of respect, of choosing what was right over what was easy. Days passed. The house settled into a new rhythm. They shared meals, exchanged smiles, and kept conversations open. The strange weight from that moment slowly faded, replaced by understanding. Still, both of them knew something important had happened. Not a mistake, but a warning. A sign that emotions needed care, just like wounds. One afternoon, Laura suggested Ethan start looking for his own place, closer to the city. She said it gently, without pushing. "You deserve your own space," she said. "Your own life." Ethan understood what she meant. He didn't feel rejected. He felt respected. "Yeah," he said. "I think you're right." That night, as Laura turned off the lights, she felt a mix of pride and pain. Letting go was part of healing, even when it hurt. And Ethan, lying in his room, felt grateful for the clarity. Some connections were meant to guide, not to hold. The house stayed quiet, but now the silence felt honest. The decision did not happen all at once. It formed slowly in small moments, until both Laura and Ethan understood that things could not stay the same. The house had given them shelter during grief. But it was time for change. One morning, Laura sat at the kitchen table with a notebook. She wrote down expenses, repairs, and reminders she had been avoiding. Facing reality felt hard, but also freeing. She realized she had been leaning on Ethan more than she meant to. Not in an unhealthy way, but in a way that stopped both of them from moving forward. Ethan came in, coffee in hand, already dressed for work. He noticed the papers. "Everything okay?" he asked. Yes, Laura said. Just planning. He nodded, sensing more behind the word, but choosing not to push. That evening, they sat across from each other in the living room. The TV was off. The room felt serious, but calm. I think we should talk, Laura said. Ethan straightened. Okay. She took a breath. You've been wonderful. You helped me when I was at my lowest. But I don't want you to feel responsible for my life. Ethan listened carefully. I never felt forced, he said. I wanted to be here. I know, Laura replied. But wanting and needing are different. I need to learn how to stand on my own again. The words were hard, but they were true. Ethan nodded slowly. I've been thinking the same thing. I care about you, but I also feel stuck sometimes. Like I paused my life. They shared a quiet understanding. No anger. No blame. I found an apartment near Seattle, Ethan said. Nothing fancy. Just a place. Laura smiled, though her eyes filled with tears. That sounds right. They spent the next weeks preparing. Ethan packed boxes. Laura helped sort through old things, finding memories she had avoided. Photos of Mark, old letters. Items that carried pain but also love. One night, Laura sat alone holding a framed photo of her and Mark. She cried, not from weakness, but from release. She finally allowed herself to grieve fully instead of staying. Busy to avoid the pain, Ethan heard her crying and paused outside her door. He wanted to help, but knew this was something she had to face alone. Respecting distance felt like love, too. The day before Ethan moved out, they shared dinner at a small restaurant. They talked about his new job, her plans to join a local book club, and simple hopes for the future. I'm proud of you, Laura said. Ethan smiled. I'm proud of you, too. The next morning, his car was packed. The house looked larger already. They hugged at the door. It was brief, warm, and safe. Call me when you get there, Laura said. I will. As Ethan drove away, Laura stood on the porch until the car disappeared. The sadness came, but so did peace. She had chosen clarity over comfort. Inside, she opened the windows and let fresh air in. The house no longer felt heavy. It felt ready. Miles away, Ethan drove with music playing softly. He felt lighter, not because he was leaving, but because he had learned something important. Caring for someone did not mean losing yourself. Love had many forms, and respect was one of the strongest. Both of them moved forward that day, carrying lessons instead of confusion. And for the first time in a long while, the future felt open. Life did not change overnight, but it began to move again. Laura woke up earlier now, not because of worry, but because she wanted to. Morning light filled the house, and instead of feeling empty, the rooms felt calm. She made coffee, opened the windows, and let the quiet sit without fear. She joined the community center near her home and started helping with weekend programs. The work gave her purpose and reminded her that she still belonged to the world outside her grief. She met people with different stories, different losses, and slowly, her own pain felt less sharp. Some evenings she walked through the neighborhood watching families and couples pass by. Instead of envy, she felt hope. She understood that love did not disappear when someone left. It changed shape. Ethan settled into his new life in Seattle. His apartment was small, but it was his. He filled it with books, music, and a sense of independence he had missed. Work kept him busy, but in a good way. He felt proud earning his place again. They stayed in touch, calling once a week. Their conversations were warm and honest. No tension, no confusion, just care. One afternoon, Laura received a message from Ethan. He thanked her for trusting him and for knowing when to let go. He said her strength had taught him more than any class ever could. She read the message twice, then smiled through quiet tears. That night, Laura sat on her porch under a soft sky. She thought about how easily emotions could become tangled when loss went unspoken. She also thought about how choosing the right distance had saved them both. She realized that healing was not about avoiding feelings. It was about understanding them. Months later, Laura attended a small gathering at the community center. She laughed more than she had in years. Someone noticed her smile and said she looked lighter. She felt lighter. Back in Seattle, Ethan stood on his balcony, watching the city glow. He felt grounded. The past no longer pulled at him. It guided him. They had both learned that love did not always mean closeness. Sometimes it meant stepping back with care, and that choice gave them both the freedom to move forward, whole and at peace.